What's up everyone, it's Sprometheus, and today I'm adding one more Niche Zero review to the internet. I know it's like a drop of water in an entire ocean of reviews, but after a year of daily grinds and really digging into ownership of the niche, I feel like I have some more things to share, and I want to talk about some of the negative and positive attributes of the Niche Zero. If you watched my first review of the Niche Zero, you probably noticed that I was impressed by its overall performance, its ease of use, and its ability to grind for different brew methods. As a roaster, I use it to cup coffees. As an espresso lover, I use it to pull shots. And as a general coffee explorer, I use it to make pour-overs, AeroPresses, mocha pots, just to name a few. And a year later, none of these things have changed. So I'm just going to end this review right here, and I'll see you next week. And of course, a big thank you to my February Patreons, Ads, Jacob P, David... Wait, are you still here? Okay, well, I'll just keep going, because the fact of the matter is, the honeymoon phase for the Niche Zero has worn off, and I do have a bit more insights about using the grinder every day that I feel like are worth sharing. Regardless of how you feel about the Niche Zero's looks, which for me has kind of grown on me over the past year, it's kind of like what your mom always says. It's what's on the inside that counts. The grind chamber design is simple but smart, and that's what allows it to grind out to about 1/10 of a gram in retention on average. But that isn't without a little bit of help on your part, and I'll talk a bit more on that later. Within the grind chamber sits, in my opinion, some of the best Conical Burrs on the market, and these come from the Coney, which is a commercial espresso grinder, and I think they have a much bigger sweet spot than most flat burr options. And what I mean by that is, when grinding for espresso or drip on the niche, I find myself spending more time drinking good coffee than I find myself fiddling with minuscule grind changes and searching the adjustment ring for the ideal dial-in. They aren't perfect, but they're consistent, and they make high-yield extractions a much easier task than some of the grinders I've encountered in both home and commercial applications. Plus, they're easily removed for cleaning and calibration, which again is a welcome change from some of the grinders I've used at home and in a cafe environment. Plus, it's a one-tool job and just takes a few minutes. In the last year, it's also been extremely reliable, with no issues with mechanical or electronic parts to speak of, and it just grinds those beans whenever I need them. As I moved away from a hopper to single dosing, I was a little concerned I wouldn't love it because it added a new variable to my workflow. But in the big picture, it didn't actually change it much at all in terms of time. In fact, I may even be a little bit faster because instead of periodically weighing as I grind, I weigh the bean once and just dive straight into brewing. Now, there is one major critique I have about the niche overall, but I'm going to talk about that at the end. But for now, I want to talk about a few design and function things that kind of leave me scratching my head and wondering, did they plan this, or was it just an oversight in prototyping and R&D? These issues are with the hopper, the dosing cup, and the dosing chute. The hopper itself is pretty shallow and very slick, and if you're not pouring in your beans at just the right specific angle and height, you may find yourself chasing one or more beans around your kitchen that have used the hopper as a launcher. I also find it odd that the hopper lid doesn't seal off the grinding area from the adjustment ring. There's a relatively large gap that allows grinds, flakes, and chips to fly off into that area. This has been minimized a bit by adding the NFC disc, but still, why? In the beginning, I loved the dosing cup, and it seemed to be one of those features that every user really gushed about, myself included. My issue isn't with the cup in general though, it seems to serve the purpose it's designed for, but the problem is this little lip. I believe this was a designed feature to avoid the cup from slipping to the bottom of your espresso basket when dosing into a portafilter, and maybe give you a little something to hold on to when moving the cup from one position to another. But this hollow little cavern will steal some of your grinds every time you pour them out. So instead of just one smooth pour and go, I find myself having to agitate or knock the cup around to get those hidden grounds back. Even though the niche is one of the quietest grinders on the market, the whole benefit of that kind of disappears when after grinding I have to knock the entire thing around and drop the lid a few times to get all the remaining grinds out of the dosing chute. I feel like they missed an opportunity to add a small knocker or something to clean out that entire chute on the fly, because banging the entire grinder around all the time probably isn't ideal for it, in the long term. And finally, my biggest complaint about the Niche Zero is on a much broader scale, and it's not about usability or reliability, it's about availability. Now, I'm not sure how much of this availability issue has to do with the current state of the world, but it seems like there are a lot of folks out there who are frustrated that they can't get a Niche Zero. And it also seems like with all the buzz behind the grinder, getting onto a pre-order list is almost like winning the lottery. This situation reminds me a lot of when Oatly first came out. They put out a ton of advertising, people were talking about Oatly everywhere. I couldn't scroll through Instagram without seeing 1 or 2 Oatly ads from multiple different people, and no one could get it. And when that happens, it creates a vacuum for someone to come in and fill it. Now there are so many oat milk competitors out there, and Oatly kind of lost out on that. And that same thing could potentially be happening to Niche. And at the very least, they're losing out on people who want to give them their money, which for a business isn't ideal. But I do hope this issue gets ironed out relatively soon. Even I, with nothing to do with Niche, just being an end user, get lots of frustrated comments on YouTube and Instagram and messages complaining about the availability of this grinder. So I think the big question is, the one most folks want to know the answer to is, would I buy the Niche Zero again? And the answer to that is absolutely yes, I would. Of course, there are other grinders out there that can grind better for espresso, and there are other grinders out there that can grind better for filter. But in my opinion, there's no other grinder anywhere near this price range that can do both as well as the Niche Zero. And I believe this is especially true when it comes to grinders that are intended for home use, which is what the Niche is aimed for. But there are some folks who've actually even adopted to using them in their cafes as well. But I think that's all I've got to say on that. Don't forget to leave your thoughts down in the comments below. And as usual, I'll see you next week. And of course, a big thank you to my February Patreons, Ads, Jacob P, David W, Christopher, Squeegee, Ro, Brian, Lisa, Obo, Andre, Sean, Noel, Spookus, Mika, Samantha, Bound Coffee, Claire, Steven, James K, Josh, Andrew Horrison, Corey C. Curry, Jeff Roth, Joey N, Thomas B, UK Espresso, RD, Tim, Ninja Warrior Coffee, Home Barista Coach, Testing 123, Jason C, Jerry, Matt, Zachary V, Tyler F, Robert Underdunk, Jeffrey R, BJK Cafe, Chris M, Daniel P, Mike B, Brian M, Brandon B, Tyler M, Sebastian, Matthew C, JRC, Absolute, and Stephen G. And of course, a big thank you to the Barista and Barback tiers. If you want any information on my Patreon, there's a link in the description and in the upper right hand corner right now. And of course, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Hit that little bell button for notifications of new videos posted every Friday. Follow my Instagram at Sprometheus for content throughout the week, my blog at Sprometheus.com, my coffee at littlegiant.coffee, and as always, stay caffeinated. Pony Boy.